When you go out there and you demand that everybody praise you and you claim a new marginalized status, you hurt people who are actually marginalized. And here's the thing, there's an empathy bank for everybody. A lot of people don't like to admit this, but we have a certain bandwidth of empathy. And we can't just be passing out empathy like donuts covered in Skittles. Question of the day. Let me start this off. On a scale from 1 to 10, how much empathy do you have for the modern day fat pride movement? And is thin privilege a thing? Let me know below, because the new social justice crusade is to expand this idea of privilege to every possible area. And there was this video not too long ago, and they've been expanding upon this, actually, doing more videos. But this is the one that I think is the most egregious, about
terrible.
Thin privilege. Let's go through this piece by piece, and you'll see why I'm so disturbed.
Thin privilege. Now, it's not a mythical creature or something made up. If you're thin, you have a certain privilege.
No.
Or if you're perceived to be thin and healthy in the eyes of society, you have that privilege. What's the everyday tasks that a thinner person can take for granted? It can leave a plus-size person like myself feel full of anxiety, burden and upset and feelings that they don't belong and don't deserve a place in the earth. So, public transport. What a nightmare for plus-size people. Just think, can you sit in a seat and not be met with sighs, huffing, puffing, and someone squirming in the seat next to you, making you feel uncomfortable?
Okay.
And knowing that
First off,
they don't want you there.
does thin privilege include equalizing audio levels? What could you not just, did she just smash with her greasy fat palm on the edit keyboard? Oh my God, you're releasing this out to the world. This is how you're representing yourself? Oh, I'm fat! I don't know if you should be talking about fat privilege or a DJ with mouse ears. I'm sorry. This is so obnoxious. And by the way, perceived as thin? What is perceived as thin? This is one thing that people always talk, they act as though we don't know how to make these judgments. Line up 10 people, okay?
Yeah.
Make 9 of them within the bounds of health. They don't have to be all thin. They can be somewhat chubby. They can be overweight. They can be on the thin side. They can be right dead center. Make one of them really obese. Then take 10 people, include these other same 10 people can be obese, they can be thin. I guarantee you every single time they can go, well, that's the fat one.
Exactly.
It's not perception. And by the way, on public transport, this is the problem with this, and we'll get back, is this ends up marginalizing people who actually are marginalized.
Yeah.
When you talk about public transport, this is because it literally requires a fundamental changing of your physical interaction with the material world. It's not because I hate fat people. No. If I'm on a plane, if I'm on a train, and I sit in a chair, and someone sits in the seat next to me, right? It's okay, I have a seat, you have a seat. If this person requires 2 seats, I need to give them 2 seats!
Yeah, that's not privilege at all. You don't like sitting next to me on a plane. I'm not fat, I'm just a bigger person. So if you take up part of their chair, you gotta deal with the looks.
Aren't these the same people, by the way, who have a problem with man-spreading?
Pretty much. Yeah. I think this is the same crew.
You want to tell me that is not worse than man-spreading? And it was just so much the way you perceive us, the way you treat us. Listen, if someone has to walk around you because of the orbit, that doesn't mean that they hate fat people. It means they have to walk around you because there is physical space they have to navigate. It wouldn't be the case with someone who was within the bounds of, the BMI range of not near immediate death. All right, let's move on to our next point here,
Shopping. Can you go into 99.9% of the high street and shop, try on, and take an outfit away that very same day? I don't shop on the high street and not actually being able to go and enjoy the experience of shopping.
Nothing like perpetuating the lazy stereotype. You can't be bothering to do Amazon. You can literally shop for anything at home right now.
Yeah.
It's a fat person's world. By the way, we don't stock XXXXLs at the Louderworth Crowder Shop, louderworthcrowdershop.com. You know why? Because we don't sell enough of them.
Exactly.
Okay? We have, this with wine, you have to purchase wholesale and sell retail. It doesn't make sense to purchase something that would not be profitable. This is the same reason that a general sporting goods store might not stock a ton of clothing or attire that would be necessary for amputees. It doesn't mean they hate amputees. Right. It means they're not a shop that sells to a very specific niche portion of the market. That being said, I have far more sympathy for people who've lost their limbs in war than people who simply let too many ring dings get in.
Exactly. Look, it's the same thing with shoe sizes, right? Every time I go into a store, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, those sizes are plentiful. You can get anything that you want. I have to go to the very end of the aisle, and there's like 8 things to choose from for my shoe size.
Right.
That's the same thing. So what do I have? Like you have privilege if you have a size 12 men's shoe.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that you're saying here. Of course, they're going to have stuff that most people can fit in. Go to a store. There's plenty of them that have bigger clothes.
Okay, but does the same apply to Dabba and Nerve socks? I don't know. I would assume you can. Those are
gotta be.
readily available
Prime.
in Landwell sizes. By the way, hit the notification bell if you haven't already on YouTube. Actually, subscribe not only to the channel, but bookmark the page because we're not necessarily showing up in your feed. Subscribe on iTunes so you can hear the audio version. Of course, liveofgutter.com/smugclo if you want to continue the show. All right, let's move on to our next clip. It has to do with actual eating.
Grabbing something to eat, just think, can you pop into a bakery, pick up a donut, and you sit there and then enjoy
large
it,
donut.
and not feel that you've been met with stares or comments? Because even though I'm confident, I cannot do that. I've had comments or being like stared at. It's just really uncomfortable. You just can't enjoy the moment.
Yes, some more comments are coming. I haven't had a donut that size in years. And here's something, again, the reason why this criticism is not designed to be mean-spirited is you are demanding validation. It's very different. No one here would want to be like, you fat little jerk, I want to beat you up. No one wants to do that. But if you're going out demanding that the world find you beautiful and demanding that we turn a blind eye to all modern medical science, listen, criticism is entirely valid. The lack of self-awareness here, to me, is unbelievable. She's eating a donut the size of a pizza pie. It looks like a National Geographic special when a lion gets a hold of a gazelle.
Exactly. And she's literally eating a donut that has Reese's Pieces cups on it.
Is it?
I know.
Is that what it is? Can we bring that up?
Well,
Is that?
It looks like it.
How does it do-
something like? Well, look, this is the thing that made me think it was parody. Why would you do that?
Can we bring that up again?
Yeah.
That I was born this way. I was born. No, listen. If you are going to try and make the case that this is genetic and it's not through choice, do not pick the pastry, the confection covered in Skittles.
Yeah.
Sorry. Let's move on to the next clip where she talks about the thin privilege in going in going to the doctor.
Going to the doctors. Are you able to go and be seen and diagnose what is actually wrong with you? Or is the appointment turned into a weigh-in session and how you can improve your diet and lose weight? And you're walking away
the
with
nerve.
a prescription
How dare they.
or no answers to what is actually wrong with you. And to be honest, I actually avoid going to the doctors now just because I don't feel like I'm taken seriously.
What? Oh, she says you can't diagnose health problems just by looking at people. Well, actually, yes, you can. Not always.
No.
First thing you walk into a doctor's, if you say, "Oh, I have something wrong here," they go, "Oh, well, let me take a look at you."
Yeah.
Let me take a look at it. Let me see what's going on.
first.
Broken arm, third-degree burns, obesity would fall into that category. All easily diagnosable by the eyeball test. But and something else to me, is it just me, or every single time that everyone goes here to the doctor, are you weighed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This part of the deal.
This isn't a persecution complex. If I walk in and I've gained 8 pounds over Christmas, my doctor will be like, "Oh, putting on that holiday weight, huh?" Because he's a dick, but he's also accurate, and I appreciate it. This is a perfect example. You want to eat donuts covered in Reese's peanut butter cups, Skittles, whatever it is. Don't call me on this and say you need to be fact-checked. There are Reese's Pieces, which don't actually have chocolate. It's just peanut butter and a delicious candy shell. I don't know what was on there. The point is, it was absurd. It was a novelty item that she includes as a diet staple, okay? And this person is upset that the primary physician is remaining consistent with the mandatory Hippocratic oath in that instead of prescribing you pills for your lazy, gluttonous lifestyle, they want to weigh you and encourage you to make, by your own admission, healthy dietary choices. This is a great, the left always talks about Big Pharma and how much they want you to take a pill to feel better. She's literally talking about doctor shopping and going in looking for a prescription for an easily solvable problem. Much more so than mental health.
Yeah, no.
Much more so than a lot of other. If you are significantly overweight, you are obese, it should be the doctor's, it should be mandatory for a first line of defense for the doctor to tell you to stop eating so many Skittles covered donuts. I mean, if I were a doctor, but I only found out about the Reese's Cups covered donuts. If I'd have known that was a thing, okay, before this last week, and I were a doctor, and someone came in looking like you, my first question in the questionnaire would be, have you been eating donuts covered in Reese's peanut butter cups? It'd be like asking if the dog got into a choking hazard. I'm not comparing you to a dog, but it's the first thing that a vet usually asks. Is there something going on? Has he been in any weird food lately? I would say, oh, okay. Well, your BMI is 94. Have you been eating any donuts slathered in Reese's peanut butter cups and Skittles? She goes on with other problems. Let's see what else she has to say.
You say that healthy and thinner people deserve this privilege because this whole thing actually has nothing to do with anybody's health. Just because someone's smaller, just in the same way as someone's bigger, there's no way that you could diagnose someone's health just by looking at them.
No, that's wrong. That's wrong.
Yeah,
Again,
that's
she's
wrong.
speaking in these absolutes. This has nothing to do with anybody's health. Okay, there are some exceptions, but this has something to do with a lot of people's health. And by the way, even excluding other risk factors, just wait. You have a higher risk of heart disease, stroke, heart failure, diabetes, period.
Absolutely.
Just wait.
Yes.
I know that BMI is not an accurate scale. I know that I would be considered seriously overweight because at 6'2", I'm supposed to be like 180 or something like that. I get that. That being said, I also accept that when I get older, it's better for me to be thinner, regardless of whether that's muscle, fat, period. Your body doesn't want to carry that much weight. And when it's exclusively fat from Reese's covered donuts, that would be considered excessive. And by the way, you live in a country that has a nationalized health care
There's
plan,
no excuses.
where they have a much higher mortality rate from all diseases and all risk-related factors than the United States, and even worse wait times. Okay, so let me just say, if a private insurer in the United States can ask me whether I smoke, what my BMI is, I think it's perfectly acceptable, perfectly along the trail of logic for a socialized healthcare program to say, "Are you eating donuts covered in Skittles?" Maybe we're going to make an exemption for diseases related to, let me see. Yes, the donuts covered in Skittles.
Exactly.
All right, anyway, but again, the whole point of this is that this is another form of social engineering just to make people feel as though everything that they know to be true isn't so. Why? Because feelings.
Before you roll your eyes at the idea of thin privilege, try putting yourself in someone else's shoes and just looking at it from their point of view, how it could affect them or how it could make them feel.
Well, I would try putting myself in your triple wide shoes, but I don't want to die. It would require years of eating Skittles-covered donuts, not exercising, sitting on the couch all day, and not going to a doctor. Okay? That's why I'm not... And by the way, this is different than saying, hey, imagine if you could put yourself in the shoes of, someone who lost their limbs in a war.
Right.
Arms in a war. Obviously, they wouldn't have shoes if they lost their legs in a war. I don't know. Sometimes they have shoes in the nub.
You said
I don't
limbs,
know.
You're good. Limbs is good.
Or imagine putting yourself in the shoes of, I don't know, someone who's autistic, someone with cerebral palsy. Everyone has empathy for those people.
Yes.
But we reserve our empathy, and I would say rightfully so, for people who've been dealt a bad hand through no fault of their own. This woman, you are, because you probably see this video, we get a takedown notice every time we do a Fat Pride video.
Right,
It's
yeah.
considered somehow emotional abuse. You are not amongst them. Well, it's like having a kid who is out of control and demands to be praised, right?
Yes.
Listen, for example, if this one went out there, and I think, I've talked about this, sometimes it almost brings a tear to my eye when I'm at the gym and I see really overweight people struggling on the treadmill, or struggling to lift weights. And I've had friends who've gone to the gym, it was very, very hard for them, and I tried to help them along the trail. Nobody faults you for that.
No.
But if you refuse to do it and then demand that people praise you, it's like a kid who no one can stand because they don't want to reward any behavior because we're supposed to reward all behavior.
Yeah. Right.
And by the way, this goes both ways. My wife is naturally very thin. She gets a lot of flack for it. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
She had a complex growing up because people would imply that she had some kind of eating disorder. You've seen her parents. They're all tall and thin.
Yeah,
6
absolutely.
foot and thin. She's naturally that way. I can't tell you how many women I've had around her say, like, we only carry sizes for real women, or you need to eat a sandwich. This happens all the time. Listen, you don't think that the only difference is she's within the realm. She is thinner. Or she was when she was younger. Right now, she wouldn't know it when you look at her. But when she was younger and she grew up really quickly, she was thinner, but she was well within the bounds of health. And that's something else. By the way, men do not expect women to be perfect, just as you don't expect men to be perfect. Hopefully, women out there don't expect all men to have a six-pack that comes with weeks of dieting down and diuretics and getting into a hot tub with wintergreen so you can have veins in your lower abdomen. We hope you don't expect that, just like we don't expect all of you to look like a cover model. We do, however, find ourselves biologically more attracted to women who fit within, the good news is, a very wide spectrum of weights, shapes, and sizes as long as they are healthy. And just like Jussie Smollett with fake crimes and poop swastika in Covington, what happens here is when you go out there and you demand that everybody praise you and you claim a new marginalized status, you hurt people who are actually marginalized. And here's the thing, there's an empathy bank for everybody. A lot of people don't like to admit this, but we have a certain bandwidth of empathy. And we can't just be passing out empathy like donuts covered in Skittles. So we reserve the right to not give it to you because we want to give it to the veteran who had an arm blown off in Vietnam. Or we reserve it for somebody who might have some kind of a degenerative brain disease that can't help it. You ate too many Skittles covered donuts. Hey there, if you like this video, subscribe or click one of these videos playing in a box. You know what? Hit the notification bell, because subscriptions don't really mean anything anymore, especially if you're not 18 or older, at the very least logged into YouTube as 18 or older, because sometimes people are 25 but they don't know how to use the YouTube system properly, and then just hit the notification bell or you hate yourself.